Good morning, everyone. Kris here with Inspired Energy, and joining me again, Hartwell. Good morning, Hartwell.
Good morning, Kris. Good morning, everyone.
Yes. So we're continuing our journey along the Ring of Matter. Maybe what you can do is just give us a little bit of a recap of the first two gates that we talked about last Wednesday for anybody that might have missed last Wednesday.
Well, the Ring of Matter, you see, is all about our developmental cycles as children. And last week we learned that the 18 was about our development from 14 to 21, which is about the mental developmental cycle that in many ways sets the tone for our life. And 46 was what was 46? um, 46 was all about luck, the journey from seriousness to ecstasy. And it was the physical developmental years from birth to 7. So we
Mm-hmm.
kind of, the reason it's like, oh, what was that again? Is because we kind of went out of order.
Yeah.
So we have the gestation years. The time when we are in our mother's womb is governed by gate 57, one of our topics today.
Mm-hmm.
And then would have come 46, which is about the development of the body,
Mm-hmm.
birth to 7. Then we have the emotional developmental time, which is 7 to 14, which is gate 48, which is our subject today.
Mm-hmm.
And then the mental.
Yeah, we went
The mental
backwards.
came out of that. So we were kind of all over the place with it.
Mm-hmm.
So today, gestation 57 and emotional
So,
48.
so tell us about 57. Let's dive in.
Let's dive in.
Okay.
So 57 is the journey from unease to clarity via the way of intuition. This is again the amino acid alanine and the cranial. These are both splenic gates we're looking at. So we see here the cranial ganglia in the belly is actually related to this to 57. But when we look at the 57 and when we think about the developmental cycle of humans, so much occurs when we're in the womb of our mother. And the 57, you see, has to do with it's very much an acoustically oriented gate. It is, or gene key. It's all about the ability to tune into the vibratory realm of life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, the collective frequency that we're all living at right now is dominated by fear. And when we're in the womb, most of our parents are no different. And so we are, in a sense, tuned to the frequency of fear through our time within our mother's womb.
Well, this is one of the things that I talked about that was my experience, um, and watching how my child also took on some of the stuff that, so like being pregnant and
Yeah.
then not wanting to be married anymore, and because it was an unhappy marriage and wanting to leave created a fear of rejection within him because he was
Mm,
in my womb at the time, and I didn't
yes.
understand why every time he wanted to go play with people, he was like, no, they're going to say no. And it's that, like we pass
Yeah.
it on to our children, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this fear,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the metaphors that might help us understand this is the idea of wind.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the wind is pervasive, it is everywhere. Just like the acoustic vibration of the, vibratory, the world is made up of vibrations.
Right.
And so the vibration of spirit is as pervasive as wind, as pervasive as this acoustic frequency vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And the fear that resides here and brings us this sense of unease is this underlying fear of the future, which
Mm-hmm.
creates anxiety for us. And that anxiety in the 57 drives us towards a desire for external security, especially
Mm-hmm.
money,
The material world, yeah.
the material world, exactly. But the thing we have to realize is that way of thinking, no form of thinking can take away our fear, because
Mm-hmm.
fear is rooted in the thought process itself. And that vibration of fear is, as says, we're inducted into it through our mothers, through our experience in the womb. And this is nothing bad against women. We're all going through this journey together, but it
Mm-hmm.
does point out just how important the beginning of our life is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, at the gift level, it flowers into intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, intuition is meant to be our body's system for interacting harmoniously with the outer world. And, when the more we rise out of a vibration of fear, the more we, in a sense, come back online in terms of our natural guidance system, which is intuition, a sense of what the future is going to hold.
Mm-hmm.
So it's beautiful to think that this is all inbuilt. We
Mm-hmm.
have a natural system for interacting harmoniously with the world. We just, in a sense, have to find our way out of the fear vibration into
Mm-hmm.
a vibration of trusting life. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. I like what Richard says here. He says, fear is not inside you. It's a field that you may live in, pass through, or ascend beyond. So fear, I mean, and in other studies you and I were participating in, Kris, we talked
Mm-hmm.
about that recently.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the flashbulb moment was fear is not personal. We have our own personal experience, but
Mm-hmm.
the fear that we're experiencing is something, in a sense, that we're tapping into because it's part of the collective.
Right.
It's a given, but we don't have to stay there.
Well, I think the other thing is, which was a big epiphany for me. I don't know if you remember, we were talking about the Venus sequence and the line numbers. And we are
Yeah.
going through that, and it talks about line one being the shadow being fear. And then the
Mhm.
way through that is movement. So the way that we're meant to overcome the fear is to actually move through it. It's actually to have some sort of action,
Right.
and then,
To, in
we
a sense,
realize, oh,
challenge it in some way by
yeah,
seeking further experience.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like even performers, right? They're scared or they're throwing up before they go on stage. But once they start performing, nobody even knows that they were so afraid backstage, right? So it's like, yeah, it's that movement. It's like just actually moving through it and getting through it. So, um, are we ready to move on to gate 48?
Not quite.
Oh, okay.
The highest aspect, the city of clarity, the city of the gene key 57 is clarity.
Uh-huh.
Um, you know, and of course, who are we? We're clarity.
Yeah.
It's um, and the symbol here becomes that of the gentle wind. So
Hmm.
with the gift level of intuition, we start to lose our fear of the future, and we start to sense and tap into our guidance system, which allows us to to move through life at a frequency that brings us a lot more harmony. And with clarity, we have this idea of the gentle wind.
Hmm.
When we are able to see the softness at the heart of all things, when we are able to, in a sense, be in alignment with the Tao, the
Hmm.
underlying nature of things, then we transcend all the opposites. And then we become tuning forks, not for fear. We're not tuned to fear anymore. We're tuned to the
Mhm.
vibration of the divine. And
Mhm.
so at that level, we express with this lovely gentleness. And I
Mhm.
think that's the message. That's the message of the 57. That life and our experience in life can feel natural, can feel gentle.
Yeah, when we listen, you know, when we listen and have that communication with the divine and it's like a dance, then that's
Yes,
the flow state they talk about, right? Yeah.
very much so. So as we enter into the 48 now, we enter into the time from the 7 to 14 time.
AT
And
double hockey sticks.
what's that?
I was just making a joke. I just said that's a time where people like that kids start going through stuff, especially like 11 to 12 to 14, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, this is where, here we have the journey from inadequacy to wisdom via
Hmm.
resourcefulness. And this is the lymphatic system we're talking about.
Hmm.
But you see, when we talk about a fear vibration for gate 48, gene key 48, what we're talking about here is the tendency of all of us to feel inadequate, um, to feel that somehow we are inherently not enough.
Yeah.
And when we're damaged emotionally, when we're and who of us isn't,
Yeah.
we have this thread. We
Hmm.
have this thread of I'm not good enough. And it brings up so much. It creates this profound uncertainty in us about our ability to handle whatever comes at us in life. Um,
Exactly.
and so what does our not self mind do with that? Our not self mind says, okay, I've got to know more.
Hmm.
If I'm feeling so uncertain and so inadequate, I need to know more. I need to acquire knowledge.
Yeah.
And so at this level, the 48 goes seeking for a knowledge, but not knowledge, but knowledge is a form of addiction.
Hmm.
Knowledge as a way of distracting us from our sense of insecure, our sense of inadequacy, knowledge for the sake of creating a false sense of security.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I don't have 48, but I can certainly see this in myself. It's like, oh, if I just know more, then I'll feel adequate,
Well, it's
right?
like if somebody asks you a question, you feel stupid if you don't know the answer. That
Right.
like it's that um, I must be able to respond. Like there has to be some response, and I think
Yeah.
that's part of it too. I know that growing up for me, having Gate 48, and watching my mother constantly reiterate that she was not enough, that I can't do anything right, blah, 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 blah. And then, of course, that all got soaked up by me, right? Because
Yeah.
then it's just natural to go when something doesn't go right, you watch your parents react like that and you tend to, right? So then it's a whole process of shedding that over time, right?
Absolutely. And I remember being asked when I was a kid, I literally remember, I don't know if I was really quiet or something, but I remember my father asking this of me a lot. It's like, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm a kid, I'm not thinking anything. But at
Hmm.
some point, that was probably his fear speaking on some level, and he was programming me. At some point, I became very aware of what I thought.
Yeah.
But I remember a time when I didn't have any thoughts about anything. It's
Hmm.
like, why are you asking me what I'm thinking? I'm not thinking anything.
Hmm.
So, and then we get programmed to chase after knowledge.
Hmm.
But you see, the gene key 48 really is about the potential of finding solutions.
Hmm.
And I mean, its name in the traditional I Ching is the well. So, here the well is very deep.
Hmm.
I mean, no one knows how deep the well goes. And it makes me
Right.
think of that phrase we hear so much since The Matrix came out. It's like talking about going down the rabbit hole.
Right.
It's like, oh, once you go down the rabbit hole, you don't know where you're going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Richard Rudd says that this 48 here, this fear of depth, the fear of what lies under, at the bottom of the well,
Mm-hmm.
has been behind our fear of the feminine, has been behind witch hunts. It's behind our tendency to fear the men in black, the aliens, the shadow governments that are all manipulating our lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's this sense that life goes incredibly deep and that we
Mm-hmm.
don't know what's at the bottom of that well. Um, but at some point, we have to take the courage to face that void and take a leap and discover what's there.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Richard Rudd at least thinks it's not cold and empty the way we think. It's actually full of wonder. It's full of light. It's bursting with life and love.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's the people who become repressive, who could become very bland. They stop looking for the answers and they bury themselves. Um, they bury their fears by accepting whatever the system tells them.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've had discussions about conspiracy thinking, you and I, and it's
Yeah.
like, um,
Or
but
or even like to take that further, it's like what you're being told in school or what your parents tell you, and you accept it at face value, and that becomes your belief, right? So when we
yes,
talk about beliefs like this, I can see how this fits into 48 as well.
sure. And it becomes our belief because the fear keeps us from
Hmm.
diving into the well on our own and discovering it
Hmm.
for ourselves, what might
Because
be
we might
there.
be wrong.
Yeah,
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 exactly.
exactly. I
Yeah,
mean, if we're being taught to fear things, it probably is some level of inaccurate.
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
obey the street signs, but I mean, how many things do we need to be afraid of?
but it's like you have to be free to want to explore like a child and experiment, and not understand that it's a mistake. Oh, I just found out a way not to do it. It's not that
Yeah.
it's wrong. I just found out how not to do it, right? And then we're
Mhm.
fine. Hmm.
So, I mean, at the gift level, we arrive at resourcefulness.
Hmm.
So we've been speaking in this developmental series about just how damaging it is to be raised in an environment where all these fears are automatically communicated to us.
Hmm.
Now, as a parent yourself,
Hmm.
I mean, for those people who listening who are parents, there's no way. There's no way around. There's no way to avoid passing on to your children the vibratory frequency that you yourself are in.
Hmm.
There's no way around that. But we can still do our work as humans. Because I mean, you're a human too. If whether you're a parent or not, you're a human. And the more we heal, the more we have the potential to benefit all our lives and the children in our life as well.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, moving into this gift of resourcefulness is about moving into trust. And again, Richard says this over and over. And so we've been talking about this over and over. Trusting your own shadow.
Hmm.
We avoid things so much, and yet here we're being shown, and I think I have plenty of personal experience to back this up.
Hmm.
Don't be so afraid of your shadow. Trust
Hmm.
your shadow. If you look into your shadow, you're going to begin to free yourself up from all your conditioning and from all
Hmm.
of your fear.
Yeah, exactly. So,
And then what you discover is that you tap into a part of you that says it's all going to be okay. If
hmm.
you're not living in fear, the solutions will arise in your life as you live it, as you need them.
Hmm.
So remember the gene key 48, the gate 48 in human design is a solution oriented gate.
Hmm.
We become very resourceful when we move out of a level, when we move out of the energy of fear.
Yeah, because then we limit ourselves. when we're in fear. Oh, I can't because of this, rather than just doing it. I
Yeah.
get it. Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to say to wrap up this week?
Wisdom. Wisdom is a city of
Mm-hmm.
48. This is where we arrive, we can tap into a primal state of knowing, where we're unsafe and unsecure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think Richard Rudd just made up a word, but it's a cool word. Unsecure, not insecure. Insecure.
Mm-hmm.
But unsecure is where we no longer need security because we've surrendered all our questions. We've surrendered all our need and we've surrendered our fear. And so we do not need to grab onto and knowledge as a way of protecting us from something.
Mm-hmm.
So true wisdom's not a product of the mind.
Right.
It's rooted in an utter trust of the body.
Mm-hmm.
It's about
Beautiful.
being like water, which takes on the shape of
Bruce
whatever
Lee.
it needs.
Bruce Lee, be like water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of interesting. What do you think about that, Kris? Wisdom is rooted in utter trust of the body.
Well, because when you trust the body, it's going to tell you what it needs and where it needs to go. It just, if you're listening, right? Instead
Yeah.
of using your head all the time to talk yourself out of whatever your body is telling you. So,
Yeah.
yeah, makes sense. So,
So if we want to raise our vibration and um, rise out of the ring of matter is all about our relationship to physical reality and all of the developmental issues that arise for us through our childhood.
mhm,
Um, and all we need to do to escape all of that is deal with our fear of material reality by facing our shadows and rising above them.
yeah, exactly. So, um, what I wanted to tell everybody is this has been an interesting discussion. So it kind of dove into a little bit about parenting and children. And Hartwell and I are hosting a tea circle on the 20th this month at 7:30 here at Clair-i-tea. And we're talking about parenting through developing uniqueness. So this is all about using the human design system. So you can come have tea and a treat with us. Hartwell will give a little talk, and then you're free to ask questions about how to apply this kind of information, all those kinds of things. So it should be a really fun and informative evening. So we'd love to see you there. You can get tickets on our webpage under events or on Eventbrite, either one. And also, we just wanted to let you know that if you need help personally, you can also come in and get a reading or a consult session with Hartwell on your own chart. So, if you have anybody you know that would find this of value, please share it with them. So, with that, we're going to say goodbye, God bless, and have a wonderful day, guys.